My gut instinct when I first heard about it is that Mike Waltz is a neoconservative. He's basically owned by the lobby, and he is surely talking to Jeff Goldberg. Jeff Goldberg is probably the most prominent journalist who is pro-Israel. So it's hardly surprising that Waltz would be talking to Goldberg. And I would imagine that he inadvertently, Waltz did, or somebody on his staff inadvertently included Jeff Goldberg in the discussion.
Everybody in that Signal chat is an open and notorious Zionist. Every single person, including Tulsi Gabbard.
Because they have no choice. I mean, this is America.
Well, let me ask you this. Can Donald say no to Bibi?
He can say no. Yeah. I mean, he's not running for re-election, and he can say no. Will he say no? Everything that's happened since January 20th, when he took office, tells us that he won't say no, because he's been doing Israel's bidding since then.
I guess I should ask, can President Trump say no to Mrs. Adelson?
Well, it's the same thing, because Mrs. Adelson and Prime Minister Netanyahu are basically joined at the hip. There's this word that seems to have gotten lost in our vocabulary. It's called accountability.
Yes.
Nobody's accountable for anything anymore. I mean, you would think that somebody would be held accountable for an egregious mistake like this. You know, the level that Waltz and Hegseth and those folks are operating, you're in a no excuses, sir world, right? The national security of the United States is at stake. Your job is to protect this country, and you're not supposed to make mistakes like this. Again, a no excuses, sir world. And when you make a mistake like this, you're relieved of your post, period. There's got to be some accountability. But there's no accountability in the American system, which is one of the reasons, only one of the reasons, that we careen from one disaster to another. But I'm surprised that you find this surprising. I mean, we are and have been supporting a genocide in Gaza since late 2023. I mean, there's nothing new here. And furthermore, if you look at our behavior in Afghanistan, our behavior in Iraq, our behavior in Libya, our behavior in Syria, the number of people who have died, and here we're talking about civilians, you know, women, children, elderly men, is off the charts. I mean, this is just standard fare for the United States of America. If you look at Israel, just how it behaves in the Middle East these days, it's, you know, shooting the works up in countries all around the region, and we support it. Nobody protests. They decide they're going to attack in southern Lebanon, they do it. They decide they're going to attack in Syria, they do it. We decide we're going to attack the Houthis, we do it. We don't care about the Constitution. We don't care about the law. We don't care whether civilians are being killed. I mean, this is the point that we've reached here. So I find that there's nothing surprising about this tape. It's also very important to understand that it doesn't include the people who will die in the immediate future or the near future as a result of what's happened in Gaza. In other words, if you go back to the Holocaust, the Jews directly the Germans, the Nazis murdered significant numbers of Jews directly, but large numbers of Jews in places like the Warsaw Ghetto died slowly over time. So you want to remember that this number is probably, if you take into account those indirect deaths, in the range of 200,000.
Wow.
And the Lancet report made this clear. But again, are we surprised by this? Again, we've been supporting a genocide since the fall of 2023. The Israelis are now trying to starve the Gazans to the point where huge numbers die and they're forced to abandon the Gaza Strip. That's what the policy is. So this is just not surprising at all.
Policy paid for by Donald Trump. Not personally by him, but with American funds.
And before that, by Joe Biden.
Correct.
This is what's happened to American values. The United States is supporting an apartheid state that's engaged in genocide. Do you need to know any more? I often think about what's happened to the concept of truth in our society. people just lie all the time. They deceive all the time. They spin all the time. You don't know what to believe anymore. This is a tragic situation. And by the way, where it's most apparent is when it comes to Israel, right? Because there you're just not even allowed to talk about how Israel, does this or does that, or how the Israeli issue relates to this issue or that issue. It's just sort of ruled out of court. And the end result is people end up speaking in oblique ways about the issue at hand. The level of dishonesty in our society is really just stunning.